Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about endings I liked, aka what I like in endings. Because I realized I really rarely love an ending in a series. Then I'm talking probably mostly about series that are not two books or not duologies and fantasy series. I don't think I read too many series that are not fantasy either way. And if they are, they're usually like companions of each other, so I don't really count that in my head. But literally just series as fantasy series, trilogies or longer that I liked. And I realized when I went through my list of all the series I finished, there's literally only two I have loved 100% and like gave me everything I wanted in an ending. They are quite different from each other, I would say. But it's really weird to me to think that how many books I read, and there's literally only two that I liked. Or not liked, it's not the right word, more like loved. Because I have others I liked, but I still feel like they didn't exactly give me like everything I wanted. It's really weird, it's really weird. So first I want to talk a bit about what I like in endings in general. And the first one is kind of connected to like the whole series, and that is kind of the bad guy. I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't necessarily need to be a bad guy, but more the storyline and the conflict. Because in some series, which is rare, but in some, let's say an example in a fantasy series, we have a king we're gonna kill. Just an example. And sometimes they use all three books killing that king. And it's kind of like when they finally do it in the third book or the sixth book or how many else books there is in the series, it's kind of like, okay, they killed him. You knew they were gonna kill him all along. It's kind of boring, you know? Because you know they're gonna do it for like 3 books now. So when they finally do it, you're not shocked. You're not sitting there like, oh my god. Unless the author tries or manages to twist this in a way that they maybe killed him but something happened, or maybe they didn't kill him after all, like they twist it. Most often this doesn't happen. But my problem with this storyline is that then when we go into the final, nothing shocking really happens because we have just been waiting for this for like 3 books. But I love it in series as when we have a conflict and the conflict gets solved in the first book and we have a new conflict going forward and you don't really know what's going to happen because the conflict is solved and you're like, well, we have new problems now, but what is that going to offer us? And one author that is really good at this is Brandon Sanderson. I think he writes the first book in a way as we have a conflict and we solve it, so you don't know what's going to come up next. And that's like my favorite part of his writing, which is why the first ending here, or the first one of the 2 books here, is Brandon Sanderson, and he writes like storylines in ways that I never experienced in other books, which is sad. But yeah, so basically what I don't often love is that we have the same storyline. The ride there is often fun, you know, it's not always about the ending, also the road to get there, and I do enjoy it at times. Like I've read fantasy trilogies where we had the same villain the whole time and I have enjoyed them, but I notice every time we come to the ending and they're like, oh, we defeated them, I'm always like, okay, that was it done. That was it. We're done now. And I notice I always feel not dissatisfied because I did enjoy the ride, but it's always like, that's it. We're done now. My next point kind of goes into the same, where I love a twist in the end. I love a kind of plot twist, or like something was not how it's supposed to be, or we need to do this other thing to solve this, because if we do what we planned along, it's not going to work, or there's secrets, reveals that the characters didn't know about at all. And most times authors try this to make the ending interesting, and most times I'm like, meh. I guess I'm just very specific and very like, I want it to make sense. I don't want the twist, not necessarily to be an actual twist, but you get what I mean. It feels really often something the author came up last minute to be like, okay, we wanted a bit exciting in the end here. I like it when it's thought through, where you really feel like the author has laid the groundwork for what you're building up towards, and when this gets revealed, it doesn't necessarily need to be about the shock. It's more like, oh my god, we really need to do this other thing. Oh my god, they do really need to not kill this person, etc. And I just love that. I love the feeling where you get a full circle, but with a twist. And that, like, you know, plays into the first thing I talk about, where we have the same storyline, but that can also work if you do it good in the end. Because I literally read books where there was prophesied that this one dude was gonna fight this other dude, and we used 4 books just wanting to kill each other, some battles, and in the end they killed one of them to kill the other. That was it. That was it. There was literally nothing else. And I was like, okay, so we just been running around for 4 books and then we just did it. I mean, for me, that doesn't give the satisfying story I want. And I know for others, you just enjoy the ride. And I did enjoy parts of the ride, but it's also like not enough for me. So that was another example. And that 4th point that I really enjoy is a change. It kind of goes into the twist, but it needs to be a change in the end. Usually in fantasy, they do have changes because like usually it's like a war, a revolution, something you're fighting against, whatever. So it needs to be kind of a change in the world or change for the people. But sometimes this change is just not good. It's just like, oh, we're gonna solve all our problems by making this a democracy. And I'm not saying that a democracy is wrong. I'm just saying that, would that solve all the problems? Would it? Would it? I'm just saying, would it? Or like, oh no, we need to remove magic, which is my least favorite fantasy trope of all time. I hate it. I hate it so much because it's always like, we need to remove magic because authors like to put in like a kind of sacrifice in the end, which I can enjoy. But then it's always removing magic because it's like, oh, it needs to be really emotional. We had magic all this time, let's remove it. So there's like an actual sacrifice, and I hate it. I hate it. I hate it when the author can't fit in magic and make it something positive, even if it's been bad for the whole book. I just hate it. I'm not saying if you've done that, I'm not saying I hate you. I just hate that trope. It's like my curse. Every time it happens, I literally, like, the rating for the book goes down so much. Because I like fighting for magic. I like the fantasticalness of a book. If you remove the magic, then what's left? Change in the world is definitely like needed, and I'm not saying most books have this. I just meant that the change needs to be good. It needs to make you feel like everything you read, even if it's 3 books or 6 books or 10 books, of all the books you read, it needs to feel like it's worth it. You have been sitting here fighting with these characters, and while maybe not the book has a twist in the end, or maybe the book has had the same bad guy throughout the whole story, that's fine. But then in the end, it needs to matter, all the things you've gone through. Another example, for example, could be Wheel of Time, whereas I really did enjoy it, but we are fighting the same bad guy for 14 books. I'm not saying that's wrong, that can work, and as the Wheel of Time books went on, you feel connected to the characters, you want them to be okay. And right there was so worth it. The changes in the characters, the changes in the world as we went along, even though we were still finding the bad guy, like, made the whole story worth it for me. It's like an ending you expected, but it's also an ending that cost things and was worth it in the end. So that was just like another example, whereas the same storyline is there, but the ride there is so turbulent that it's worth it. Just another example, just saying. But not my favorite ending, because that is very much like a good versus evil story and a good one, you know? It's not really a spoiler. I assume most people would think this, reading Wheel of Time in the end. And then there's the 4th thing, and that is deaths. So most fantasies have, you know, deaths in the end. And I totally agree that there needs to be consequences, as I just talked about, for the story. I would not see myself that everyone would survive to the end if there's wars, etc. and battles. But I do also think that sometimes authors literally just kills off characters to have a shocking value to the endings. And I really don't like that. I can like come up with like 2 or 3 books in my head right now where they literally just kill characters in the end to make the story more emotional and impactful. And I'm not saying that no one should die, because I also think it's weird that no one died, but it just never feels natural sometimes when characters dies. It's either super dramatic and it's being like, oh my god, my best friend died, it's the worst thing in the whole world. Or it's just like, let's kill 10 of the main characters. 10 was a bit much, but you get the point. Have one person surviving. It's always like, it's not balanced enough. I totally agree that people should die, but I also feel like, since it's fantasy, it should mean something. But at the same time, I do get it that you don't always want them to mean something. It's the whole balance, you know. Authors to have that balance, whereas they didn't die meaningless, or they just didn't die to die, you know? I've seen authors talk about this, whereas saying that even though it's the ending, you don't need to kill and you don't need to murder all your characters to make the ending impactful. I think that those are your tools, to kill someone. But I don't think that if the only way you can make the story impactful is through killing them, then your story is not strong enough, you know? Then you need to have all the foundations and then you kill people and it fits into the story. I don't know how to describe it. These are just my views on it, and I've been like thinking more about it lately, considering how few endings I really have endured. But yeah, that was my 4 points. So really, I want not the same villain throughout the stories, but that is really normal. But at least I can deal with, like, Wheel of Time, as I just mentioned, it was fine. A twist in the end, because it's boring to just have a prophecy and the prophecy is fulfilled. Sometimes these twists doesn't work though, as I said. A change in the world to make it worth it. But like usually there are changes, but sometimes the changes sucks. So have the changes good. And then that's, consider your deaths. Consider if they are needed for the story. I'm just saying. After all that, let's talk about 2 endings. The only 2 endings that I would 150% stand behind. And they are the best endings I ever read in my whole life. And I read quite a lot of books now, but hopefully in the future I will have more here. So spoiler alert, the first one is Brandon Sanderson, and that is A Hero of Ages. And this one delivers everything I just talked about. I do think that reading the first book and then reading this for the first time, how everything came together, I never ever in a billion years would have thought that it would end like this. It is sad though, like it really like feels like the last days on this earth. I would say like you're fighting literally for your survival. And it's just so many great things. You love the characters after the second and the first book. And just the things coming forward. Just how Brandon Sanderson, even though it's the end, always have more cards in the deck. Because he's been holding them exactly back as you want them. It's just a master storyteller. I just cannot deal, because I never read anything like this where everything just came together and also just still new things came along while also writing with the characters to the end. Just, yeah. I wonder how Stormlight Archive will end, because that would be a true ride after everything. And I have a feeling like it's gonna be amazing. So, yeah. The next Stormlight Archive book is the 5th one, which ends the first arc. So I guess it would be kind of ending-ish there, because he's going to take a break after that. So we shall see. Just how the story is structured, nothing compares. Then we have one that I was terrified would not deliver what it should deliver. But it's very much different from Hero of Ages. But this one is Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. And it's the final book, obviously, to the Greenbone Saga. And in here, we just get everything I talked about. But here is just such an emotional investment in the characters. Whereas you will follow their journey over so many years. From the first book to this one. Just the whole urge for everyone to be okay. But it has the twists, definitely. The villain part is a bit like vague, because who is really the villain here, just saying. The deaths, definitely have those covered. But that has not been a surprise since book 1. Because book 1 delivered the standpoint you needed to move forward with these books, just saying. And a change, like it has everything. And it's written so well, where it just cannot compare. Like the whole trilogy just delivers everything you want. And yeah, okay, emotions, not ready for them, but like truly has everything you need. I could have talked about more endings, and like we could have gone through the list of what I have and don't, but I don't know, is that spoilery? I don't know. I've tried to be vague, because spoilers in the world, you know, because those 2 are like the only ones I come up with that gives everything you want. But like I have books that gives what you want, but for me it's not done well enough to like be the great ending that I am craving for. Jade Legacy and The Hero of Ages are the only one that delivers that. You know? And I don't know, it's just funny to me. I would love for people to discuss down below what you like in endings, if you agree with any of the points I talked about here. I know that we're all looking for different things, but I just realized that these are the things I want. And I can like books not having either of these as well. Like, I can love them as well, and they can feel really emotional to me in the end. But as time goes by, I wouldn't like consider them perfect endings, but ending doesn't need to be perfect for me to enjoy it. These are just the 2 perfect ones that I have experienced. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I read books that I really, really enjoy, but just doesn't have all the things that I want, but I still thoroughly enjoy them. I was gonna talk about 2 more because they were like almost perfect, but I think I'm just gonna leave it at this to have the perfection in the end. And I hope you enjoyed this video. A little, I'm not sure what we're calling it, discussion, I don't even know. You will see me soon in a new video. I hope you enjoyed. Leave a death emoji down below if you enjoyed this, because I talked about that. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Goodbye, you will see me soon.